Hello and welcome to Emotional Eating Unwrapped. We are going to be chatting about the 5 foods that are not a problem when it comes to weight gain. We're going to talk about these 5 foods because they get blamed for weight gain over and over and over again. Not because they're actually doing damage, but because they are the usual suspects. They're easy to point to, they're easy to fear, and they're pretty easy to cut out. And that makes them really convenient villains. But the truth of the matter is, and I want to say it really clearly, is that if weight gain were in fact caused by these 5 foods that I'm going to be talking about today, we would all be as thin, or you would all be as thin as you want to be by now, right? Women have already removed these foods at some point. I remember in my journey with weight loss, when I was looking to lose weight, I absolutely removed these foods at some point, and the only thing that happened was my battles with my weight ended up being worse. So today, I'm not going to convince you that these foods are quote unquote okay. That's not what this episode is going to be about. We're going to talk about why they keep getting blamed and what's actually happening instead, right? So I'm not going to sit here and make a case for these foods so much. We're going to talk about the root underneath it and what's happening instead, and hopefully be able to give you a new insight and reframe to disentangle yourself from any kind of negative association that you have with these foods so that you can include them back into your life and include them back into your meals with a sense of confidence and comfort and ease. Before we begin, if you're new to me, my name is Alana Kessler. I am a registered functional dietitian. I've been in this health, wellness, mindfulness space for 20 plus years. I've worked clinically. I've worked in mindfulness, as I said, yoga, meditation, all different areas of this work. And my passion now, and has been for many, many years, is helping people really find love with their body, lose weight if that's something that you want to do, reconnect with yourself, and overcome any kind of emotional or addictive behavior with food and just live your best life. So if you are new here and this is your first time listening, welcome. And we are going to dive right in. So the first food that we are going to be talking about today is bread. Bread is one of the most common foods that people blame for weight gain. Cannot tell you how many hours I've spent coaching clients where we strategize about bread. But bread does not cause weight gain. I know that you might just think you disagree with me, but I can tell you very matter-of-factly that bread does not cause weight gain. Here's what happens with bread. So with bread, it ends up being avoided, restricted, saved for special moments, eaten after long stretches of restraint, restriction. When bread finally does show up at the table, on a buffet, at a party, the way that you relate to it is very loaded, right? It's not just bread. It's not just food. It's not just another substance. It's super loaded. And your nervous system, by the time you are interacting with the bread, is already activated, right? What's going on is that you're having this narrative, this B-roll in your brain that's saying, I shouldn't be eating this. This is bad. Negotiation starting. And this stress response that happens when bread is in the picture, this conversation that starts happening with your nervous system and what's getting activated matters more than the bread itself, okay? Because when a food is eaten in a state of threat, the body does exactly what it's designed to do when it thinks it's in trouble, when it thinks it's in danger. What happens is insulin gets released faster, digestion slows, the body stores more, right? The body holds on more. So this is what happens. And so the reason why the body is doing this, the reason why the body is creating a condition of storage is not because the bread is fattening. The reason why the body even might feel a little heavier sometimes after you eat bread, and I'll tell you this from personal experience, is not because the bread is fattening, but because your body is responding to this emotional instability. And I've had this experience a decade ago when I used to eat bread. I swear that I would wake up the next day and I would feel more bloated. Now, when I eat pizza once a week, which if you're a longtime listener, you know that this is a ritual I have with my husband. We eat pizza once a week. I get a full personal Detroit style pizza that I enjoy and love. I wake up the next day and I feel leaner most of the time, honestly, because now I eat it regularly, calmly, right? I don't have this like negotiation in my brain. And so bread eaten without this type of energy, without this type of charge, does not create that experience of weight gain, does not create that experience of retention. Bread is not the issue. Your body not trusting is the issue. All right, food number 2. And it's not so much of a food as it's like a concept. So food number 2 is dessert. Okay, there is nothing wrong with eating dessert. Dessert is not a problem. Enjoying sweets and indulgence is not a problem. Pleasure is not a problem. What does cause weight issues is when dessert foods become this internal fight, this internal battle, instead of just a normal, regular part of life. You've built a good life. From the outside, it looks like you have it all together. You eat clean, you work hard, you take care of everyone, but there's this one area that still feels impossible to master, and that is food. You can eat perfectly all day and still end up in the kitchen at night wondering why you keep doing this. You promise yourself you'll start fresh tomorrow, and I know you mean it every single time. But the cycle, it always finds its way back, especially when you're stressed, when you're overwhelmed, or when you're just tired of being the one that's holding it all together. And I get it because I lived that way for years. And what I learned is this. The problem, it was never about food. It was the pressure underneath it, the perfectionism, the self-doubt, the part of me that never felt safe and secure to just be me. And that's why I created the sober eating sequence. It's a proven 3-phase method that rewires the emotional patterns and the belief systems driving overeating so you can relax, trust yourself around food, and release weight completely naturally, without force and without obsession. Because when your body feels secure, it lets go. The cravings quiet, the self-punishment, it softens, and food, it stops being the thing that you have to fix. This is not another plan. This isn't another rule book. It's a revolutionary transformation for your nervous system, for your body, and for your identity. So join the sober eating movement today. For a lot of people, dessert carries this deeper meaning, right? Dessert is like, I only eat dessert if I earned it, right? I'm eating dessert now because this is the last chance I'm going to have it. Or I'm eating dessert now, but tomorrow I'll be good, right? There's this morality that comes allowing yourself to indulge in a dessert. And even that word, right? The difference between indulging and enjoying, right? It's like indulgence has this sense of something that's kind of naughty, whereas enjoying is just something that is just part of your birthright, right? It's our birthright to enjoy. Indulge kind of sounds like something, like I said, is more forbidden. So this forbidden framing keeps dessert emotionally charged. And not because dessert in and of itself is dangerous, but because it's placed at the end of a restriction cycle, or it's framed in a way that it's sort of this not allowed thing, or this thing that you shouldn't really have, but you're going to do it anyway. And dessert eaten from a place of deprivation, right? There's this compulsive energy that accompanies eating dessert when it feels like it's forbidden, or if it comes at the end of a restriction cycle where you think, where it feels like you just have to have it all because your body's been in restriction, or if you think you're not going to have it again, right? Like there's a different energy than eating dessert from a place of abundance, right? When you eat dessert from a place of sufficiency or from abundance, it feels ordinary. You can have regulated amounts of dessert and it doesn't create chaos in the body, right? It doesn't create real issues. And so it's really important to understand that bodies don't store weight because you had something enjoyable. I think this is such a really interesting belief system, a belief system part of it, because I think many people do have a generational internal belief that if you enjoy something, you're going to get punished for it later. And I think we do have this belief system that if we enjoy dessert, our punishment later is going to be weight gain. But that's just not true, right? Bodies don't store weight because of pleasure. They store weight when we put our bodies into state of metabolic unpredictability with our eating behaviors. So when we train our bodies that pleasure is something that is a normal occurrence, right? Having, chocolate every day or having a dessert, something that's desserty every day, when pleasure like that is allowed and it's expected and it's repeatable, the body doesn't cling to weight. The body doesn't gain weight for that. And that is, I could tell you that is a verified personal experience. I have a sweet dessert at least once a day, every single day, right? The dessert itself is not the issue. It is the story around the dessert. That's the issue. All right. So before we move on to food number 3, I just want to remind you to like and subscribe to Emotional Eating Unwrapped on YouTube and on Spotify and on Apple. Please give us a 5-star rating and a review. It really helps us, get the podcast out there and just move up the algorithm so more people like you could find us. And if you know anyone that would benefit and is struggling or, could be helped by any of our episodes, please share it with them. That would be an amazing, amazing gift. All right. Food number 3, pasta. Pasta gets blamed so often. And it gets blamed because it often shows up late. And by late, I mean it shows up late in the day. People are usually eating pasta after like a long day of work, a long day of travel. It's usually something that happens late when we're feeling hungry. Maybe we've been hungry for a really long time and we have pasta. And most people don't eat pasta when they're moderately hungry and in a grounded place. A lot of people eat pasta when they're already depleted. This is just the way that we have come to think about pasta, right? A lot of people conserve their quote unquote eating for pasta, and then they eat it in a very unregulated kind of way. And so pasta becomes this scapegoat almost. And it's not really the pasta itself that's the issue, but it's the fact that sometimes it can be the first real nourishment after hours of underfueling, of undereating. And I'm not saying this is for everybody, because the truth of the matter is there's ways to prepare yourself for a huge bowl of pasta if that's what you want, and not have a situation where you go into that and the portion control goes completely out the window. There's a way to train your body in order to be able to stay regulated and eat pasta. But I'm talking about, the person that thinks that pasta is the reason why they gain weight. And it's not. Normally it's this reason, right? Pasta is often something that we go into eating it in a really, really hungry state. So once you're actually in front of the pasta, about to eat the pasta, your body's like, finally, we've been waiting. We've been waiting for this. And the way that the eating goes is it's very fast, right? We eat the pasta super quickly. We're not in tune with our fullness cues. We're not in tune with making more conscious decisions about portion sizes. We're kind of just in this very reptilian state with it. What happens a lot with pasta is that we eat it so quickly. The way that it gets stored in the body is a bit different because it is very carbohydrate heavy. So the hormones that digest and absorb the pasta can create a lingering fullness. And we can think that it's the pasta that's making us feel bloated and heavy. But it's not necessarily because of the pasta itself. It's because the body went into the pasta eating experience from a place of deprivation, from a place of, I have to be emptier in order to create the conditions for pasta to be allowed. Whereas pasta eaten maybe earlier in the day, more regularly actually, and without apology, right? Pasta eaten in those conditions, it doesn't behave this way in the body, it doesn't create this lingering fullness or this bloat, right? So delayed nourishment is what drives weight gain, right? A lack of clarity around portion control and our connection to our fullness and our ability to have a secure attachment with pasta is what will create the weight gain more than anything else. All right. Food number 4 is cheese. Cheese gets blamed so much, especially in the I eat healthy, but I can't lose weight conversations. But like the others, cheese isn't the problem. It's how it's used. It's how it's used. So because for many people, cheese becomes a placeholder, right? Cheese becomes this thing that we have like a little bit here, a little bite there, something to quiet hunger without actually eating enough, right? It's like the grazer. Cheese becomes the grazer food. And so the body stays in this constant state of almost satisfied, almost fed, almost calm, but almost is stressful. Almost is stressful. I think it's so important to understand that because bodies, they don't gain weight because of the fact that cheese is a rich food. It gains weight because of like incompletion. So it's not the cheese itself, it's the manner in which we're using cheese in our day. It's almost like a mindlessness to it. It's a grazingness to it, right? Cheese is part of a full meal. Cheese used to avoid eating a full meal keeps the body unsatisfied and unsettled. Cheese isn't what's stalling the weight loss. It's using the cheese and keeping the body underfed. That is, okay? It's using the cheese in this way that's ultimately keeping the body underfed. That is stalling weight loss. Okay. And the last food again is again kind of like a category is snacks. Okay. Snacks get blamed a lot for mindless eating. Okay. It's like, I got to throw out all the snacks, got to throw out everything, but snacking itself does not cause weight gain. Missing meals, weight gain. Okay. When you don't eat enough balanced full meals. And again, I'm not somebody who thinks that you need to eat 3 square meals a day. If you have ever worked with me, you know that I have an eating strategy and the sober eating sequence and the sober eating method that, does not dogmatically say you need to eat 3 full meals a day, but you do need to create an eating routine where full meals are a part of your day. And so when you don't have enough full balanced meals, right? Where they have micronutrients, macronutrients, right? Like together, or your day is not structured where you're getting enough of that, the snacks will multiply. And when snacks start replacing meals, they never resolve hunger because your body is never satisfied hormonally, emotionally, and physiologically. So the body will keep asking, right? The body will keep thinking it's hungry. This is like the emotional hunger thing. And so snacks, right? When you want snacks all the time, the snacks aren't the issue. They're actually the signal. They're actually the message. Because when meals are solid, satisfying, predictable, right? When you have learned to construct your eating strategy and your eating behavior where you create satiety through meal combining, snacks naturally become neutral, right? Snacks become neutral. When meals are like rushed or they're light or, they're conditional because you're on some kind of, restriction diet or, you're deciding to do some elimination thing, snacks feel out of control, right? Snacks can feel out of control because you're constantly grabbing at them, but your body isn't snacking because it's like an endless pit of greed, right? It's like, it's not snacking for that reason. Again, it's snacking because it's actually underfed, right? You're not feeding the body the nutrition in a way that's signaling to your hormones and your metabolism and your nervous system that satisfaction has arrived, that you're satisfied. So you keep snacking. So the deeper pattern beneath all 5 of these foods and, the dessert and the snacks were categories is that the deeper pattern is that these 5 foods get blamed because they show up at the edges of regulation regulation. They show up at the edges of nervous system and emotional regulation, right? They show up, a lot of times these foods show up after restriction, during stress, right? Late in the hunger signal, right? We get to the famished place, the super famished place, right? They show up inside fear. There's like a fearful relationship with some of these foods, and they show up around control. And so weight gain, it doesn't come from eating these specific foods. It comes from, right? If you are listening to this and you're like, I have eaten these foods and I felt like these are the culprits for my weight gain. Weight gain doesn't come from eating these foods. It comes from eating them in a body that doesn't feel safe in relationship with these foods. Okay. And there's a difference with that. And so what does safe look like, right? Safe looks like consistent nourishment. And that's something that you create through your own unique life experience, your own unique rhythms and routines, right? I do not teach these random things that are like eat 2 hours after you wake up. Like I don't believe in that. I believe that you can learn your own signals and your own routines, and you create your own consistency. And that's something that then you will always feel in control of, always feel empowered by. And that is something that will help you immensely, right? Safe means predictable meals, right? Predictable. And I'm not talking about meal times, but predictable meals that you can create, whether it's something that you cook or whether it's something you can create out of a hotel buffet, or, you can create in a restaurant by ordering different things, right? And making something together, right? There's all these different ways that you can create your own predictability. Safe means giving yourself permission without punishment. And safe means that you don't have to compensate or do anything to fix yourself after having these foods. There's no morality attached to it. There's nothing you have to make up for, because bodies that trust consistency, they don't cling to weight. And this is something that I know, again, firsthand. The years I was restricting, having this type of fearful relationship with these foods, I was gaining weight a lot. Now I eat these foods so regularly. And as you know, I am the fittest and feel the best in my body that I ever have in my entire life. It's not these foods, right? Bodies that trust the consistency, from a place of security, don't cling to weight. Bodies that expect scarcity or punishment, they do. Okay. So that's the end of the episode. If you want to share something that clicked for you in this episode, or you want to ask us an anonymous question for our next listener Q&A episode, you can click the SpeakPipe link that we have in the show notes, and you can leave us an anonymous voicemail. If you haven't listened to our last listener Q&A episode, it was so fun, so good. And you'll see that the questions are anonymous. We don't say anyone's name or anything. So if you have a question or something that you want to share, please use that link and share it with us. All right. And that is all for me. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you in the next one.